I like to do things differently, so instead of making a Resident Evil 4 video like everyone else, I decided to make a Dead Space Remake review 2 months late. Mostly just because I didn't feel like buying Resident Evil 4. So, honestly, Dead Space is my personal game of the year so far. Like, it's really, really good. And it's published by EA, no less. So much for single player games being dead, huh? If you're watching this video deciding whether or not to buy it, just click off the video right now and buy it. And if you're someone who watches a review of a game right after you bought it for some reason, don't worry, I do that too. You made the right choice, other than the fact that you gave your money to EA, and unfortunately, there is no other option at the moment. But that's okay, because Origin is dead and buried, and you don't need any other flaming dumpster fire of a launcher to play the game, so don't worry about it. One thing is, I'm not really a horror guy, due to the fact that I am a massive pussy, until one day I randomly decided to buy Outlast on a Steam sale, and I played it and finished it all in one session that lasted until like 4 AM, all to prove a point. What point was I trying to prove? Good question. Then I realized that me being a little baby made me miss out on some pretty good stuff, so I started to play horror games. The point of me saying all that is, firstly, I've never played the original Dead Space, so this review isn't me being blinded by nostalgia or anything, and also that I can still recommend this game even if you aren't a big horror game person. Another thing that I want to mention before I get into it is that I kind of forgot to record the gameplay of my first playthrough when I first got the game at launch, so all the gameplay footage in the video is from a new hard playthrough and New Game Plus. So I played through the game multiple times, which I feel is pretty telling of how good and replayable the game is. TLDW, Dead Space 2023 is a masterpiece. I finished the game in about 17 hours, and that was with me doing all of the side missions and just taking my time looking around, but it can probably be completed in about 12 hours or less if you just focus on the main story. There's a whole lot of pros to go through. First, there's a great combat sandbox here with a bunch of different interesting weapons and tools to murder Necromorphs with. A story that keeps you hooked the whole way through. One of the best gore systems in a game that I've played. Amazing visuals that keep the vision of the original. And last but definitely not least, the intensity director that keeps the game scary the whole way through. For the cons, the game still has a bit of a stuttering problem when loading new areas, but it seemed much better than at launch when I replayed it for the video. Other than that, there's nothing else major. I experienced 0 bugs throughout my multiple playthroughs, but that doesn't mean there aren't any, and some people are still experiencing them. Most notably the standby glitch that causes doors to remain closed indefinitely, which can ruin impossible mode runs since you only have one save. Should you buy it? Well, obviously, and watch the rest of the video for an in-depth explanation of why. Guess what? The title of the video actually wasn't clickbait. I'm not going to spoil any major plot points, and all gameplay and cutscenes are from the first few hours of gameplay. I suck at talking about stories critically, and I didn't feel like making the video sound like a book report, so I'm not really going to try and pick apart the story. So basically what I'm saying is you'll like it a lot more if you experience the story for yourself, rather than listening to me talk about it like some middle schooler reading a shitty paper in front of the class. Alright, so let me speedrun a brief summary of the beginning of the plot real quick. So basically, it's 500 years in the future and you play as this cool space engineer guy, Isaac Clarke. You and your homies are flying on your ship, USG Kellyan, to the planet Aegis 7, where the USG Ishimura, the big planet cracker ship, is orbiting. And you and your team are on a repair mission to fix it. Also, your girlfriend Nicole is on the Ishimura too. You try to radio the Ishimura, but they don't pick up the phone, so you're like, that's weird. And then you crash land at the hangar of the ship because the docking system is malfunctioning on the Ishimura. You guys get out of the ship to see what's up, and you realize there's nobody there. You get inside, and you run a damage diagnostic and find out the Ishimura is not looking too hot. Then all of a sudden, oh no, quarantine activate, and guess what? These zombie monster things called Necromorphs come out of the vents and turn your boy Chen into a shish kebab. Then your other homie Daniels opens the door for you and tells you to get the hell out of there, and you run for your life and nearly escape death. That pretty much sums it all up. And the rest of the game, you're trying to figure out what the hell happened on the Ishimura, and also you trying to get the hell out of there for obvious reasons. Also, there's this cult, but they're not important. But in all seriousness, this is one of the best openings in any video game because of how well it builds tension and really hooks you on the mystery of the story at the beginning. And also, the chase section where you have no weapons and Necromorphs are also breaking out of the vents all around you is absolutely terrifying. I won't say too much more because I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that the remake changes some things from the original and throws some curveballs that can even surprise the seasoned veterans. but don't worry, it still hits all the same major plot points, and it very much stays faithful to the original. One of these changes happens near the end of the game, and while I won't say what it is, I will say that the game does a really good job of leaving subtle hints for you that something isn't right, but you just can't quite put your finger on it, and the reveal at the end I thought was very good. Oh yeah, and Isaac can also talk now, so that means that all the dialogue in the game is pretty much completely changed because of that. Now I personally am a big fan of silent protagonists in games, and I hope they make a return because annoying main characters are seemingly becoming the norm.
I did not just do that.
We did.
I just moved shit with my mind.
And a silent protagonist is much better than an insufferable protagonist, but I can say with certainty that Isaac is not annoying in the slightest. Because Isaac can now talk, Dead Space makes you feel like an engineer. This time around, it actually seems like he knows what he's doing, because he uses his experience to offer insight on how to fix problems.
Target the ADS cannons manually?
If I give the cannons enough targeting data, it'll recalibrate the system. You got a better idea?
Reacts to events going on around him,
That's right.
Fuck me! Ugh.
and argues back and forth with his teammates.
This theory.
Hey, knock this shit off.
And now he actually, has a personality. The only story change that I outright didn't like was the way a character dies later in the game. It just seemed completely unnecessary and kinda pointless, and makes the character seem pretty incompetent, and I just don't understand why they didn't keep it the same as the original, because it was simply much better. But the good changes greatly outweigh the bad changes, so it's not that big of a deal. I usually wouldn't dedicate an entire section to just visuals, but since this is a remake, the updated graphics are one of the bigger selling points. If you have eyes, you'll notice this game looks amazing, so don't expect much substance from this section other than me saying, "Game look pretty," like a caveman. Everyone should take notes from Motive when remaking an old game, as they've done it the right way. In the original, they used dark lighting and fog to cover for some technical limitations, and the remake does the original justice by keeping the same style, but filling in the gaps where the 2008 game could not. Speaking of lighting and fog, they're what make the graphics in this game so goddamn nice to look at. This is a dark game, that's what makes it so scary, and even though the game is trying to be as uninviting as possible, and the whole world seems to hate you, you just can't help but stop and smell the roses. Except the roses are usually dead bodies. Even the ship itself feels like it's trying to kill you. Like, what is the point of these vents being so sharp? It's pretty much just workplace safety violations the game. One of the best parts of Dead Space is how immersive it is. You feel like you're in the game, and a lot of that is thanks to the UI. Almost every aspect of the UI is in-game and accessible by your character, and it doesn't have out-of-place menus that drag you out of game and break immersion. The environmental storytelling in this game is also top-notch. One of the many examples of this is a security recording where an engineer is going insane and the audio says he's pulling his teeth out. And when you walk into the bathroom, you can see that in the sink there's a pool of blood, pliers, and even little teeth. This last part didn't really fit into this section, but I wanted to talk about it and it's my video, so I don't care. Every part of this game is crafted in a way to make you feel uneasy. Even the sound it makes when other characters video call you is like a mini jump scare.
We're on board.
And another thing that I couldn't find a place for, but I still wanted to mention, is that there's a secret text log that you can unlock for doing a specific series of stomps and punches, and I just thought it was cool. I don't feel like coming up with a line to transition, so... Alright, buckle up, because it's time to talk about the thing that people actually play games for. You know, gameplay. Okay, where to start? I guess you're right, that is my job. So I'm gonna just start with the weapons in the game. Your arsenal consists of 7 weapons and 2 abilities, all of which you find scattered throughout the game. This helps keep it fresh, and also allows for these cool animations you get when picking them up. You also have a stomp and a punch, but they're pretty much useless when it comes to dealing damage, and you would probably end up doing more damage with a pool noodle. The 2 abilities you have access to are stasis and kinesis. They're both pretty simple, and do pretty much exactly what you'd expect them to. Stasis slows things down, kinesis lets you move stuff with your mind. And by the way, me calling them simple is in no way an insult, because they're really straightforward and fun. And pinning Necromorphs to the wall never gets old, trust me. The first and most iconic weapon in Dead Space is the good old plasma cutter. There's an achievement in the game called One Gun that requires you to complete the game with only this gun, which might sound horrible, but the plasma cutter is amazing, and I wouldn't even be mad if it was the only gun in the game. But it's not. The next weapon is the pulse rifle, which is your generic sci-fi laser gun with a secondary fire mode that shoots a mine that just blows shit up. Next is the Ripper, which, as per its name, rips Necromorphs into tiny little pieces using a saw blade, and also has a secondary ability that lets you shoot out a ricocheting blade. The flamethrower is, well, a flamethrower, and even if it sucked, I would still use it because the flames look really cool. And also, I hate these annoying little things, and I love watching them burn. Anyways, the contact beam is literally just a giant laser that can do this.
Positive anomaly detected. Quarantine activated.
The line gun is like a big plasma cutter that does more damage and has this laser trap ability. And last but not least, it's the force gun that shoots a gravity well that pulls enemies towards it, and its main fire mode blows all their skin off in a gloriously gory fashion, as well as knocks them backwards. Speaking of gore, it's pretty amazing in Dead Space. Just a quick disclaimer for the federal government, I am talking about a video game, not real life, and I am mostly mentally stable, so please don't put me on a watch list or raid my house. Thank you.
Bravo 6, moving on the rear garden.
Now that I got that covered, let's talk about gore and dismemberment. In Dead Space, the video game, of course. Dead Space takes the classic shoot the zombies in the head thing and flips it on, well, its head. Hey, you try writing a script, it's not as easy as you think. Instead, Dead Space has you surgically chopping off the Necromorphs' limbs piece by piece in order to stop them, which turns enemies into a sort of puzzle that you disassemble very violently. This system is really satisfying as the enemies' bodies act as health bars, because you can clearly see when they're taking damage. Their skin, muscle, and eventually bone realistically tears and breaks off. Or so I'm told. I've never actually gruesomely murdered undead alien things before, to be clear. Now, time to talk about something that doesn't make me sound like a threat. Dead Space is a horror game, and horror games are scary. And that's mostly due to something called the Intensity Director. This is basically a system that's only job is to let you know you're never safe. It will make sure to spawn enemies in places you've already cleared, so even backtracking can become a terrifying task, and not even the shop or the trams are safe, as you can be attacked there too. This greatly adds to the replayability of the game, as no two playthroughs are the same. One thing I love about this remake is that they don't treat the original like it's perfect. Motive understood that some parts of the original weren't as good as they could be, and they fixed those areas in the remake. For example, the zero-G environments in Dead Space 2008 were clunky at best, and now they are fully explorable environments where you have total control of your character, and it just makes you think, why wasn't it like this originally? Or the ADS canon section, which was completely rebuilt and is awesome now. The last thing I wanted to mention is how there are practically no loading screens in this game, and you pretty much always have control of your character. Look at how you load into the game. You're in the main menu, and then just like that, you're back in where you left off. And I really hope other games adopt this because it's amazing.
I think it's me. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening.
Nicole?
I don't know how to end these videos, so just buy the game to look cool. And if you didn't think it looked cool, you probably just have bad taste. Also, on a completely related note, if anyone from 2K Games is watching, I really want a Bioshock 1 remake.